Going on, Clarence? Let's do it. D-man alright. Whoa. D-man alright. Spicy mafia. D-man alright. Spicy mafia. You gotta keep it spicy. If you see a queen, you better wife it. Boy, we litter than a lighter. It makes things much brighter.
Well, all right. You want spice? We've got spice. We have Bitcoin ABC lead developer, the benevolent dictator, the NPC extraordinaire, Amaury Séchet. But first off, Amaury, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Let's get. Do you think the candid nature of the way that you speak to people, I thought about this a lot, and how you come across sometimes is just like very French, like franc, like free, like frank. I'm not sure if I'm reaching, but like you cut through all the bullshit, and also being an engineer doesn't help, right? Because you work, your day-to-day life is, it either works or it doesn't, and let's stop dancing around the issue. Like, this is either working or it's not, and you follow metrics and reason and so on. Do you think the combination of being sort of French and rational just grates on people, that maybe people are a little bit more emotionally inclined, or kind of gushy Americans, that they have trouble with your approach?
Yeah, so this is definitely something I noticed even before BCH. When I was before doing that, I was working at Facebook in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area, like even by the US standard, is very politically correct. And I had this Italian guy I was working with there at the time, and also I was working with a fair amount of people from Tel Aviv in Israel, and both, like the French or Italian culture or the culture from Israel, both are, much more direct in your face kind of culture. And it was like all those people ended up congregating together under the banner saying that, in the US, if it's funny, it's not funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And yeah, so there is definitively a bit of a cultural difference there, but I think it's also good. It's good for engineering, and it's good in a space like Bitcoin where there is a lot of bullshit, right? And so it's good for engineering because, as you mentioned, like engineering is a lot of stuff are, either binary, they work or they don't work, or you can put a number on it and, pick whatever gets you the better number. And really, like engineering matter really don't care about how you feel about this or that other solution, right? They just, you try different solution, and if one works better, even if you don't like it, this is the one that, you have to go with, because this is, this is what the numbers tell you. So when you work on engineering, you kind of need to put your ego aside a lot and don't take things personally. When the compiler tells you that your code is all fucked up and doesn't work, then, that's how it is, right? And you cannot get angry at the compiler. But it's the same where another engineer, like pick up your stuff and it's like, well, this is not gonna work for whatever reason. You must not get attached to it. This is not about you. And yeah, specifically to crypto, I think in crypto we've accumulated a lot of people that have those grand idea about what it is and how it works and whatever, but like don't do much at all at the end to make it work or to spread adoption or, to do anything really. And quite often those grand theory, they don't really stand out the test of, comparing to reality. I'm a big fan of using the scientific method in general, even for stuff that are not generally recognized science. So what is the scientific method? It's that you have a model of how things work, and you're gonna make prediction based on what this model tells you, and then you verify in reality if those prediction came out to be or not. And if they came out to be, then that's reinforcement that your model is probably good. And if they don't work, that means that you need to change your model in some way to account for that. And we see like a lot of those people that have great idea, they don't really apply that principle, and they end up pushing narrative or idea that don't match actually the fact of what happened. And if you have a small amount of those people, then you can debate that gently and stuff. But I think that in the crypto space in general, we've reached a point where those people are probably the majority of the space, and and so we don't have the luxury to be nicer with them, I guess.
Yeah.
Nicer to them.
Yeah, well, I've written as much in a recent article about your take on OKCoin and their fundraiser, and I tried to sort of bridge the gap between some of the outrage I had heard at your, as they would call it, kind of a snub of a gift horse, just kind of going very French, go away from me, and then on the other hand, trying to tie it back into your talk, your presentation that you gave in Townsville at the Bitcoin Cash City conference, talking about Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Cash, or the culture of Bitcoin Cash and culture and the importance of it in particular. And I thought, well, after a couple of weeks of letting that marinate, here is Séchet essentially doing what he told you he was going to do, which is stand on this principle and kind of moving in that direction. So did I get that right? Did I blow it? Did I miss your point, or did I just sort of over dramatize things?
Well, the main point is that the campaign, so it's a bit of a multifaceted stuff, but the campaign essentially was done in such a way that it would attract attention by pitting people against each other, and it would not generate that much funding for projects that need it, right? Because a lot of it would go to projects that are backed by billionaires to begin with, and other would go to projects that I think didn't do much for the space in general, and so you can see the reaction from that, right? Because the people that are all about attention, they were extremely positive about the whole stuff. I can think of Jimmy Song, for instance, that was ecstatic about it, and so he's a YouTuber and stuff like that. He's a bit of a developer, but amongst Bitcoin Core developer, he's a fairly small one. So it's not it's not writing that much code. It's not doing that much on that front, but he's doing a lot of stuff that put himself in the forefront of things, make himself visible. So that's a very good thing for him, and he's very happy about it. But at the end, each project got something like 10K in US dollar equivalent value, and this is this is barely making a dent on anything if you want to actually achieve anything. Like, you cannot hire someone for any significant period of time for that kind of amount. So it doesn't make that much of a difference.
And you thought there might have been some ulterior motives there besides just
because
marketing.
Okay, so beside that, several people reached to us, and I'm not gonna say who, because this was done privately, and
sure,
I'm not here to reveal private conversation. But several people came to us from OKCoin or other people that OKCoin reached to, and what those people were told by OKCoin and what OKCoin told to us did not match what they did after that. And right out of the bat, the stuff hasn't started. That it doesn't help that it was when stuff are not presented honestly to you, you should always be suspicious about the ulterior motive, right? Because if people are not telling you what is true, then you got to wonder, why is that? And you can see, I think you can see the way it was done, and one of the reasons it was done that way is to promote BSV quite a bit. BSV has a huge legitimacy problem in the space because of the people who created it, right? They ended up, being shown that they are fraud and they are not very competent at what they're doing, and the only reason they are there is because they are backed, being backed by a very large amount of money, and people are burning a large amount of cash to keeping that thing alive. And so there was a willingness to present that project as being an alternative to BTC or BCH, with both in their own way, I think, are legitimate project in the space. And so if you present that thing that is, that is more or less a fraud, right? And you put it close to other project that I wouldn't say are fraud, then, and you present it at the same thing, then, you kind of try to shape the perception of that project that is perceived as a fraud as being legitimate. And it's very clear it's made quite subtly, but I think it's very clear, like the whole graphic that they use, for instance, put BTC and BCH on one side and BSV on the other side with an up arrow. And it's also a bit of a different color, right? So BSV is very, struck out, and it has like, up arrow next to it and stuff like that, right? So the graphic and the way the whole campaign is made is hitting at that. And it's not very surprising. I think OKCoin is behind Float SV. I'm not quite sure, but I think they are, which is a BSV-centric exchange. And this whole stuff has been struggling to get any volume, so it's not working very well for them. But I think they are trying to like this whole stuff, like all of that fits together, and I think it's not random.
And so all of this, as specific as we just got into it, the general theme that you're working with now is to try to prevent the next, or be proactive towards the inevitable next PR disaster, right? The next bad actor association. And so you're certainly more hyper aware of these things than your average Bitcoiner, your average crypto enthusiast who maybe has a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, holds BCH for whatever reason, either from the actual fork and just having it by default, or they've invested in it or speculated on it. But you certainly have you're definitely I guess the general theme then is to try to show and try to highlight, whereas before, maybe when we talked in the pre-show interview, you kind of said, well, before I was I would sort of hint around at it, or I would make certain comments or whatever, and now it's a time for being direct. And CoinSpice, to be honest with you, has also received some of your ire shortly before you went to Townsville. I guess calling it like it is, before he came over to CoinSpice, formerly did a YouTube show with Roger Ver, who's now chairman of Bitcoin.com, and they had a kind of a freewheeling, fun conversation. It was just, they were kind of broing out and nothing too serious. And Colin prompted Ver with a question like, who's your arch enemy or whatever, and whatever crypto. And Ver, of course, said he thinks that this person really dislikes him, and he talked about Elizabeth Stark, and he was kind of half smiling and laughing about it, and saying that putting the onus on Jack from Twitter fame and Square, and saying that maybe he was kind of going into a further elaboration, but just sort of messing around, that maybe Jack was romantically involved with Stark, who of course is the head of Lightning Labs. And so that went out into the world, and there was noticeable outrage or just kind of dismissal, or here's, Veer again talking about nothing or whatever, and creating and stirring things up. And then Roger doubled down. He actually, tweeted out, I do think that, perhaps one of the reasons that, Twitter is so, or Jack Dorsey of Twitter and Square is so interested in Lightning and Bitcoin is because there might have been a relationship between the two. And that caused a lot of outrage. Some people accused Roger of misogyny. Others went on. So we wrote about it, and then we made kind of making fun of the people who were outraged of just sort of the absurdity of it all. And we made a video about people white knighting and coming to her defense, and sort of all the usual characters. And you retweeted. So you said, look, I don't remember. I should have, if I was a real podcaster, I would have actually read it again. But I remember you saying something like, look, this is an example of what I'm talking about. Like, these guys are immature idiots. You didn't call us idiots, but this is what I'm saying. But, these guys are immature, and this is the kind of bullshit that we're dealing with. What did CoinSpice do in that case that kind of goes against an uplifting of the culture as you're trying to do?
Okay, so to begin with, I think you were kind of right about the white knighting. It was a bit ridiculous. I don't think that was especially misogynistic or anything, but it was just very poor style. It was like, tabloid grade bullshit essentially. And when you think about it, it's also a very self-defeating statement, right? Because if you say this kind of stuff, then why would Jack would want to get involved with you, right? So just because you are willing to make this kind of statement is reason enough for Jack to not get involved with BCH in any way. And as a result, you don't need any theory to explain why you wouldn't do that, whatever the theory is. So that's, one reason why it's self-defeating. But also, this is like the private life of people. Like, even if it's true, I don't actually think that's true, but even if it's true, then that's Jack's and Elizabeth problem, and it's really not our business to get involved in that. It's just make us look bad. There's nothing to be won there.
It's not a hill to die on.
Yeah, and people were like pushing that like crazy, and it's just on both sides actually, but I think both sides were pretty dumb on that one. It's just, it demonstrates the space as being very immature, and this is the opposite of what we want. Like, we want to say, okay, we are going to be the money for the word, and you don't want the money for the word to be run and promoted by immature idiot, right? Because this is like not what you want from your money. You want your money to be as boring as possible. You want it to work and be reliable. And that's it. You don't want to be like eventful with a lot of drama and all of that. So, yeah.
I just thought it was fair to also put our necks on the chopping block, since I'm allowing us to talk crap about OKCoin and everybody else. I figured we should be lumped in there as well. And then as editor in chief, I have to take complete responsibility for it. So. Kind of staying on the theme of Roger Ver, I also expressed to you in the pre-interview that I'm a bit of a fanboy of you both, but especially of Roger, and find him a compelling figure, someone who's necessary. I'm not afraid to cringe at some of the stuff he says or some of the stuff he does, but it seems that your tone towards him publicly has really turned. And I'm not sure if that's, I'm trying to allude to earlier what I started with, which is sort of the French engineering, Frank sort of direct, that Facebook Israeli French connection, that is just super direct, and then you guys in private have a very good, working relationship or whatever that is, or if this is a real turning point in the Bitcoin Cash community where, there is a sincere divide. So I'm wondering if I'm not sure if I have a question. I just think I kind of want to flesh out your thoughts a little bit more on this, because I know it sits in the back of a lot of people's minds. Like, are these two at each other's throats? Is there something up? Can you kind of go into it a little bit?
Okay, yeah. So first of all, Roger is probably one of the people that have done the most for the adoption of Bitcoin and no Bitcoin Cash, like pretty much more than anyone else. And so on that front, it's definitively a very valuable member of the community. But one of the problem, I think, that have been going on with Roger is that it doesn't really pay attention to what's going on inside, right? It's very much focused on promoting BCH to the outside, which is good, but as a result, because it doesn't pay attention inside, but at the same time, he has so much reach, like people look up to him and people listen to what he says and people take his opinion seriously and all of that, because he hasn't been paying that much attention on what's going on inside. He has promoted ID that have done a lot of damage in the inside. And I think we should not be shy of also pointing that. And yeah, that's that's pretty much what is going on. And so it's not, it's not a rejection of Roger, but I would hope that it improve on the second point, right? Or it just, left it alone. It's like, you know what? I don't want to spend the time to pay attention on what's going on here. I already have so much to do to spread adoption and whatever. So I'm just gonna not get involved with that anymore. That's also, another option. But the way it's doing it right now is causing a lot of problem for people actually building stuff.
And do you guys have a working relationship anymore? Do you speak?
Yeah. Every, I don't know, not on the regular basis, but every few weeks, typically we speak.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. And has he said anything to you? I don't want to, divulge any private conversations that you're not comfortable doing, but has he mentioned to you, like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on? Like, is there an issue? Or does he kind of get the fact that you're now out there kind of offering, this is my characterization, but kind of loving correction, like, hey, stop doing this?
So he already came to me in the past being like, okay, you seem upset about this and that, like we should talk about that. But one of the problem is that the pattern repeats and it's creating a lot of damage. And the pattern is going to be like not paying attention to the game theory of what's going on, and as a result, taking strategy or backing people that are the wrong people. And maybe the most striking example would be Craig Wright, right? Like we had many people come to Roger trying to explain to him that, this whole Craig Wright business is not going to hunt well. And he ended up, more or less supporting Craig Wright up to like a week or two before things actually blow up, right? And this is a bit of an issue, but now we see him backing other personalities in the space that are actually very Craig Wright-like in many ways, even though they don't have, the same financial backing. But is falling into the same trap again. And if that is not addressed, this is gonna create, a lot of damage going forward.
Gotta keep it spicy.